Welcome to Insight Builder channel. Why to use flows in CrewAI with your crews? This is part 4 of the multi-part CrewAI agents series. How to design flows and integrate your crews with the flows. Before we go to the next step, where we are going to learn about structured and unstructured flows, understand the parts of the flows, calling Crew Kickoff inside the flow, using flow to manage state, and parsing user input, let us actually look at an example. Let's fire up Windsurf. If you guys have not heard of Windsurf, it's a AI-enabled code editor, which is very similar to various other code editors like Cursor, VS Code, etc. The difference here is that this Windsurf code editor provides the Cascade feature, which allows you to manipulate the files on your file system. Our intention of showing this editor right now is to share how we can use that feature. So I have opened a folder called general, and inside the general I already have a file called solidprinciples.md. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write inside the Cascade with the write mode enabled. I'm going to write, you are a top Michelin star chef. Kindly provide me the recipe for chocolate cupcake to be served for 15 people. Let's take 5 people. We are new, so we don't want to try it for a large number of people, right? So it's going to be only for 5 people. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to just let it to give me the recipe. I'm going to ask it to write the recipe to a recipe.md file. Write the recipe to the file named chocolate cupcake recipe.md. So now the main point I wanted you to understand is that how this flow happens. So this is an example of a flow. So here it is starting to tell, it's directly creating. Before creating, it should have already got the recipe, and also it should have already got the ingredients for the recipe, correct? Then only it can start writing it to the file. But this process of creating the ingredients, creating the recipe data is already done. So you can see that the chocolate cupcake file has got created here. And let me close this for a moment. And it has also updated the time required, the equipment required, the ingredients, along with the quantity that is required. And following that, there's instructions also. So it has given me a very detailed information, and it has written it to a file. Also, what I wanted you to notice is this number. So once the data got created, the state of the flow was updated to us. So we as a user were able to find what was happening inside this Cascade interface. This kind of scenarios we can code using CrewAI, and for that we need to understand how the flows work in CrewAI. That is the intention of showing this. And also by now you must have understood that we can do a lot of things with Windsurf. There are a couple of more videos that I made on CrewAI. You can take a look at it in this area in the playlist called playlist that I've created for CrewAI. You can explore that in my channel. So you can find that in agentic IDEs and AI code monkeys. Yeah, fine. Let's now move to the discussion. So what we are going to do is there are different ways of creating flows inside CrewAI. 2 ways especially is the structured and unstructured flows that we can create. The difference is in the way how the state is managed. I'll be diving into the details in a couple of seconds. We need to understand the parts of the flows, and we need to understand how to call the crews from the flow. This is one of the point I am really fascinated about, and we will see how to do that in a couple of minutes. So let's actually look at the flows. if you look at the diagram, the flow consists of all these parts. The flow is having the state. This is one of the important data point that I wanted you guys to remember. And the flow is made of methods. Methods in Python or any other language is actually a function that is linked or clubbed to a particular class. So flow is kind of a class that has various methods under it. And the methods can either contain a logic, that is a programming logic like a regular Python method, or it can actually contain a CrewKickoff also. We will be seeing how to write and update these things in a couple of minutes. Apart from that, flow by itself can control what methods are called next. That is one of the quintessential feature of CrewAI when it comes to flows. We will be seeing how this works in real life scenario. In order to make the flow to call one method after the another, there should be a logic, correct? And that logic is implemented using the router, start, listen decorators. Apart from that, we have and or decorators that can support these router, start and listen decorators. This is all well and good when you are looking at it from the overall picture. When you dive into the flows, you will understand it far more easily. Next, what we will do is we will review the benefits of flows. So when it comes to flows, you will actually have a simplified workflow. We will see how the workflow gets created. It's pretty simple once you understand the steps that is taken. We can manage the state. State is kind of a cache or a temporary data storage location where the flow can manage the inputs, the outputs and the processing of that particular flow. Like if I go to this particular example that I showed you, I started by asking a simple question, right? You are a top Michelin chef and I gave some inputs. I gave the chocolate cupcake, I gave it has to be served for 5 people. So these 2 inputs has to be kept in the kind of a variable somewhere. So that particular aspect is done using the state. We will be seeing that development in a couple of minutes. Next, we will look at the event-driven architecture. So when a particular event has been triggered, so when the file has been written or when the generation of the text has been completed, so these are all various events. Or when a particular method has completed or a crew has completed its work, that is an event. And that is how the flow is controlled. We can have a flexible control flow by using the logics and loops that I already showed. And finally, we have input flexibility. As I told, there are 2 ways to handle the state, either using unstructured or structured state. Basically, state is a dictionary. We will see that in action once we start coding. So before we get into code, we need to understand these basics inside out. So that's why I'm going through this process in a detailed fashion. We have unstructured state where the workflow state is simple and it can be highly dynamic, meaning you can add and remove the keys to the dictionary without any issue. There is no constraints. There is a flexibility because there is no particular keys that needs to be enabled or the value to be provided. There is no such restriction. You can rapidly prototype without thinking about the schema definition, because in case of structured flow, you will have to design the schema. So workflow requires a well-defined and consistent state structure. And because workflow, the state is using the pydantic base model, and the pydantic base model will throw an error if you don't give the proper data input for a particular structure. So that is why they are talking about type safety is one of the benefit, validation is the second benefit, and also it has its own quirks also. If you want to leverage the IDE features, because once you create a pydantic base model and if you give it the necessary keys, then the IDE will know that, okay, this particular class will need this particular state will need these attributes, right? These are the benefits that you get when you're going for structured state. But it also has its own challenge when you're going to work in a difficult environment, right? Fine. So we have actually seen right now that our target, why we have to learn about the flow, and what are the steps that we are going to learn, what is the structure of the flow. I have not still explained what are these parts and how the methods are going to work. That we will see in action directly, right? So let us move forward and let us start with the design of a flow. So we are going to design a flow, and we are going to design the same flow that we tried here. So what we tried here was that we wanted a recipe to be written to the file by using the large language models. So I wanted the flow to take the recipe name or the dish name and the number of people to be served, and I wanted output like this that you see here. The same thing I wanted to implement using the flows. Apart from that, I needed a couple of more things. First thing is, I wanted the flow to tell me what it was doing. So one of the once you have actually seen how the flows work, you might be wondering that instead of having flows calling various crews, why not actually have multiple crews call themselves, or multiple agents inside a single crew? That is still possible, but when you want a kind of a state management, or when you want a flow management, or a sequence or a logic management in a much more detailed fashion, then it's better to use the flow rather than using the existing sequential or hierarchical process that is present inside CrewAI's agents. If you are new to CrewAI agents, if you are not able to follow up on the processes that I am talking about, I would suggest you to look at the earlier videos, or you can go to CrewAI. You can go to CrewAI, you can go to pip install CrewAI, it will open the introduction, and you can dive straight to the one second, you can try the processes. Yeah, so this is where the processes, type of processes are shown, and these processes are part of the agents, but what we are talking is about the flows. Let's move back. Okay, so let us now briefly go through the steps the flow will take, because one of the main point I wanted you to take away from this discussion is to make you comfortable designing flows and designing agents, designing the crews. This is going to become very, very important, because at the end of the day, there are going to be two different kind of people going forward. So there will be people who will build the backend logic, and there will be people who will actually use the backend logic, right? But the point here is that the people who are going to use the backend logic, they don't need to write code. They will have to write the things that they want in English, and the flow is mainly developed in English, so you don't need to actually write the code. Once you write the flow in English, you can use some no-code environment, or kind of a setup where you can bring all the crews and you can get the things moving. But at the end of the day, you should understand the logic, or you should understand how the backend works. That's still there. You have to still learn how the code works. You have to still learn how to read the code, but it's not required for you to write the code. The code by itself will get created. In fact, Windsurf will also create the code for you. I actually don't need to do this process itself. There is an easier way. You can still simply request Windsurf to give me a flow that will execute this kind of a user input, create this crew, and then give me an output in the file. It will very well do that for me. The intention here is for you to understand, if the Windsurf is going to give you a code complete with the flow details, etc., you should be able to read it and understand what is going on inside that. So that is my primary intention. It's not about writing code anymore. It's about having ideas. It's about knowing how to read the code. It's about knowing how to use the systems, the AI tools, and technologies. Yeah, the point again, I reiterate, is that you should still be able to understand the logic. You have to know what you want. In my case, I want to create a recipe file, recipe.md file for a chocolate cupcake that is going to be used for my friend's party, and 12 people are expected. So this is an example that I am using here. And there is one more thing that I wanted you to show. So let us go back to Windsurf and let us actually update. I want to update. So this is something that struck me just now. The idea struck me. The recipe here, the ingredients here has been created for serving 5 people, correct? 5 people, 6 cupcakes, correct? Now I am going to say I want to update the chocolate cupcake recipe to serve 12 people. So what do you expect will happen right now? Logically, the recipe.file must get updated, correct? It has to get updated here. It has to be updated in the timing requirements, the equipment needed, probably not the equipment needed, but the ingredients have to really be updated. So let us actually see what happens. So let us execute this. Why am I showing you this flow is you will actually start working on such flow design very soon. There might be some flows that doesn't work in Windsurf. You might want to create a flow for your own use case, and you might actually look at CrewAI. There are lots of use cases, and there are Crew Studio where you can create the agents also. But knowing what is going on behind is crucial, and you can see that right away the changes that has been made. So you can see the changes here. So if I accept this change, you can see that it has become for 12 people. Here the timing has been modified. So if I accept this change, you can see the preparation time is 30 minutes. Decoration time is 25 minutes now from 15 minutes. Instead of 6 cupcake, it is going to be 12 and 15 cup liners. And here comes the major change. So all the ingredients has been updated, and we can see the difference right there. So the flow has stopped in the middle. The flow has stopped in the middle where it has given you the diff of 2 files. A temporary file which is having the updated data, and a existing file that with the current data. So I'm just updating the existing file by using this accept option. This kind of flow execution and giving control to the user is very, very important. Each and every step that we take has a lot of details involved, and knowing these things inside out and seeing the challenges that you might face visibly will provide you the necessary intuition for you to take it forward. Okay, so what we're going to do is next we will take a break and we will come in the next video. We will discuss on how to code the flow. So here we will complete the flows here. So we have 3 crews that we'll be using. So we'll be using the extraction crew, which will extract the name, the dish name, and the numbers served. So the extraction crew, the purpose will be to provide the dictionary output of the text data. So it will take a text like this and it will give a dictionary output like this. So that is the primary objective. So goal is to extract the details like name and number of people served. And the expected output is in JSON format. You see that, right? This is one of the important things. So I can actually say that expected output in JSON format with dish name and number served keys. I can be a little more specific in our task. And the agent is going to be an extractor agent, content extractor agent, whose goal is to extract the details, and you will extract the names, quantity from the given input. So that's what the first crew is going to do, and it is going to contain a single agent. The second crew is going to be the chef crew. The chef crew is going to be the recipe writing master chef agent. So you can see that I give priority to the task first, because the task is what is going to decide who is going to do it. That is how it works. So you need to know the task. So I need to take the dish name and number served, and from that I need to get a recipe out. So that is my output that I'm expecting. Recipe of the dish along with the quantity and the ingredients. And the agent is going to be master chef agent. The master chef agent, as I already told, is going to be he is going to be good in writing recipes for the dishes asked by the users, and the goal is to provide the detailed recipe for the dish name to be served to number of served people. So by now you must be seeing the pattern here, correct? the output will be ingredients and recipe. This is the output that I'm looking for, but here the output was much more detailed. If I want, I can actually take all this output that I've got here, and I can actually update it here also. No one is going to stop me, but I would prefer it to be much more simple and straightforward. Every step I want a flow to provide the status, what has happened. So this is also something that I wanted to code. And the third is file writing crew. The output should be written to a file. I don't want it to be just staying there in the display. I want it to be in the file so that I can store it or I can share it. This is what the file writing crew will do, and the task is to write the recipe or the data to the file path, and it is going to be done by the file writer agent. The file writer agent has a role of writing data to the file, and the goal is to write the text data to the file. And backstory is that you are a file system manager, excellent file writing expert, and make a file by using the name and fill it with the data given. And finally, the flow complete status is provided to us with the file write status. So in this video, we have seen a couple of things, right? We have understood the parts of the flow. We have seen this, and we saw the difference of unstructured and structured state. We saw when it can be used. We learned about the benefits of flows. We saw some examples of how the flows work, and then we started designing the flow. We went through the entire process of designing the flow, crew by crew, agent by agent, task by task, and then we have come to the end of this video. So I believe that you have got some good idea on how to design a flow. I would suggest that you guys have to practice. This comes with practice, even though you don't need to. In fact, you actually don't need to practice this, because most of the time there are no code environments that can actually build the extraction crew, the chef crew, and the writer crew for you. You don't need to do this, but when a no code environment does, and when it is not working, then you need to know why it is not working. So for that, you need to practice. So with that said, I would like to leave this video with 4 words, that is practice, 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 practice. See you guys. Have a great time.